Hey everybody, this is Javier Valderramos. This is Planet Texas. I have John the Machine Davis. Now, you may know John the Machine Davis when you see these videos on social media of people slapping each other, but it's a lot more than that. He is actually the middleweight champion of power slap. A lot of people don't actually know what power slap is, but there's a whole bunch of rules that go with slapping each other. And this is also one of the projects by Dana White himself. You know, the UFC owner and producer, and he does everything with UFC. Now he also does that with Power Slap. Mr. Davis, thank you for being on the podcast, by the way.
Of course. Appreciate you having me on. It's an honor and a pleasure.
So what's the deal with Power Slap? What do we want to do with this?
It's probably the biggest up and coming sport that's really, taken over social media from YouTube, Rumble, clips, reels, any social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. The amount of views that we get is in the billions, at least from what I heard the other day, and I'm pretty sure it's been there for quite some time now. I know there's quite a few clips of myself that's in the millions. So whatever that means to some people, it's definitely blown up super fast in the few short years that it's began, and a wild ride, to say the least. Talk about a roller coaster.
So I see that you just became the middleweight champion by defeating Mr. Rodriguez.
No, I've actually fought him twice. The first time
you fought him twice.
Yes, the very first time was when they handed out the belt, so I'm the original middleweight champion. And then I defended it against Wesley Drain in quite a rough match because I had hurt my shoulder in that one, and it was just a bit of a hellish match to begin with once that started. So I had to really battle through that. And then once I got healed up, Azael Rodriguez has worked his way to stay at the number one contender. And then him and I had a rematch where I was able to defeat him yet again.
So how do these people go about becoming in Power Slap? Because I've seen that y'all have tryouts. How do they go about joining Power Slap? What is...
From the beginning, everybody's story was a little bit different. Some people got, someone reached out to them, whether it was producers from the Ultimate Fighter show, or they just happened to know someone. And then some of us happened to just find it, my story in particular. I was looking to get into amateur MMA, and I was looking in the fight forums on Facebook. And then one day all of these ads kept popping up about slap fighting and then getting paid for it. And of course I blew it off like most people normally would at the very beginning. And then I think I posted a comment, it was like, is this even real? And then the next thing sitting in this very spot, a few phone calls and a little bit of paperwork later, I'm sitting in Vegas at the UFC Apex, shaking Dana White's hand.
It's funny how you talk about journeys. Like, a lot of people don't know, but we have everything from former college football players to competitive bodybuilders to military veterans to powerlifters. Every shape and size, they have come from all over the place to join Power Slap.
Absolutely. And, the horizons broadening as time goes on. The global reach for people coming in to compete is getting bigger day by day. And it's not, at the very beginning, they were really kind of, scraping the barrel to get people to come out and try and join and compete. And now they've gotten, I forget how many applications they said in the last interview that I heard Dana talk about, but it was to the point where, they don't really have to reach out to anybody anymore. It's more so they can pick who they want when they want because of the demand and how much people are actually trying to get into this.
So what are the rules to Power Slap exactly? Because I'm looking at some of them, but I think it's better if you tell them.
Absolutely. To start off with, like any other combat sport, there's two opponents. You make weight, of course, because we have weight classes, and then you move on from there to competition day. For us, it's a little bit different once you get past the making weight. which, you know, like all professionals, you should be making weight because of the contract you sign. But there's a coin toss, so there's a lot of chance that, you know, we kind of sit there with your fingers crossed that when that coin toss goes, hopefully it goes for you. If not, because unfortunately I can't even remember the last time I won a coin toss, but you either strike first or you receive first. So if you're lucky enough, the coin lands on your side, you strike first. Your opponent will walk up to the table. They'll have the stick that you hold, and I know it looks like a goofy little padded stick, but it actually, you grip onto it. So that way, you can't be raising your shoulders as the person who's receiving a strike. You can't have your head tucked, and you can't be, you know, all bunched in like this. You have to be in a proper form that hopefully the referees, they look at you to make sure you're in the correct stance. And then the striker will line up and say, you know, if you were going to throw your left hand on 2, you're going to look at the ref. You'll say left on 2. You reach out, and then you line up 1, and then you strike on 2. You can either go on 1 with or without a measure. 2 and 3, you have to measure, and then go, you know, on whichever number you call. Because if you go on the wrong number, then, you know, you will get penalized for that. And that's not really, you know, there's a lot of points games in this to where you can lose by points if you're not paying attention to the actual rule set. And then, you know, so on and so forth. As the striker, your feet have to stay planted. There's minimal heel lift allowed, because we have cameras and referees watching from every angle with the instant replay. So that way, say if I'm striking, I hit my opponent, I knock him down. At that point, I think I've won. And then you'll see the light going on, because the referees and the commission are checking, and they'll be like, hey, you know, you stepped or you pivoted, which is not allowed. So therefore, if the match was over because my opponent can no longer continue, he or she, depending on who's fighting, the opponent would actually win, because I broke the rules. So it's very easy to end up losing if you don't really get down to the technicality of things.
Well, because I'm going through some of and I'm looking at the fouls, which includes like clubbing, striking, illegal wind up. There's delay in game. You have a delay in game and slap.
Yeah. So you'll have a minute in between rounds that once the refs or the doctors have to check you, and you also have the time where if something does happen, say you get fouled, you have, I think it's 5 minutes, but don't hold me to that right now. But say if you get fouled, you have more time to completely recover before going back up there. But yeah, if you take too long, then you end up costing yourself that round. So if you're not back up to tell them you're recovered and walk up to the podium within a minute, then you start getting penalized for that.
And then the PPE that you wear, the safety equipment that you wear. Sorry, I'm in law enforcement, so everything.
No, you're good.
I have to like fight the urge to use military time when I talk to.
Oh, that's okay. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the safety equipment that you use, it's a mouth guard and a cotton inner ear protector is kind of what you be using, right?
Yeah. So they'll take a cotton, it gets cut in half. You stick them in your ears all the way. So that way your eardrums are protected to the best of the ability, and your mouth guard, you bite down on that sucker to the best of your ability also.
So what are your thoughts when you go through the actual fighting, when you actually go through the actual combat? What exactly do we call that?
I mean, competition, fight, whatever you want to call it. That's one thing people are still really kind of getting used to, figuring out exactly what you're going to call it. Some people call it a fight. Some people are like, well, that's not a fight. But I just usually for a base go with competition, because at the end of the day, no matter what, it's me or, you versus somebody else.
Because like y'all are combat athletes, no matter what anybody says.
Absolutely.
Y'all are combat athletes. So what is actually like your workout routine, if you don't mind me? Because I see that you have the weights behind you and everything. And Roots, before we started recording, you were telling me you were working out.
Yeah. A lot of functional strength, because it's not really anything specific. And I also don't want to give away too many of my secrets. I got to try and hold on to them as long as I can, because as simple as a thing we do, I try and add as much as possible. But functional strength, so strong core, making sure that shoulders and elbows are in proper form. So a lot of form training when it comes to throwing the strike, because it's easy. Like I said earlier, I've hurt my shoulder before, and I know a lot of guys have the same problem. Elbows, wrists, you really want to make sure that you're landing correctly, so that way on the follow through, because we're all aiming for that big knockout, so that way you can get the big clip for all the views coming your way. And if you're lucky enough to get your bonus on top of your win pay, that's what really everyone's really reaching for. But again, to the workout stuff, functional strength. So for me personally, when I go to walk up on stage, your adrenaline's running, your heart's pumping. I like to be ready for that already anyhow. So if I go on a nice run or do some cardio to get the heart rate up, or I was in the sauna earlier, so that way I'm sweating and my body's kind of like uncomfortable, and then I'll come out and I throw 100 strikes, 50 with each hand, so that way I'm in a position where my body's like, hey, what the hell's going on here? This is not anywhere you want to be right now. I'm tired from my regular day's work, and come out here and put in some extra work. I really want to be mentally prepared to go up there, because that's, I think, one of the biggest aspects a lot of people probably downplay, is the being mentally prepared to go up there, because you got to have some grit and mental toughness to go up there, especially when you've lost the coin toss and you're about to take one, and hope to all that's holy that you're going to make it through that first one, so that way you can really get the tone set and then come back with vengeance.
So what is like the mental preparation that you have? Like, is there any strategy? Is there any, like, if I take this, I know I'm going to win when I give it to him? Like, how does it work? Like,
again, it kind of comes down to the grit and really knowing in the back of your mind that you're going to go up there and do some shit that nobody else really wants to do. Again, like I was, if I do a 4-mile run, and then I come in here and I do my form training, or I'm, doing, again, the functional strength where I use a lot of band work, or you're using the machines, so that way you can take the fluid movements of your strike and really incorporate that workout, so that way you're strengthening actually what you're doing. Because like you can bench 400 pounds, that's all great and gravy, but I don't think that's actually going to really play a factor into power slap. And then, like you're saying, when it comes to the mental toughness, you're pushing your body through times where you normally would quit. Doing 20 minutes in the sauna earlier, like that's not fun. No one really enjoys that. You want to get out after 2 minutes when you're in there sweating your balls off. Like, oh man, this is not desirable by any means at all. But once you've pushed through that, and then when you get down there and hey, I've pushed myself physically and mentally farther than any of my opponents probably were willing, then going up there and taking a hit is really not that much at the end of the day.
So what are some of your memorable moments or matches that you've had since you've been in power slap?
I would say my second one, because my first 2 fights were at heavyweight, and my second one is actually a fight that they haven't been able to post, because it made the rule set for certain things. So, again, this was back before anyone really had a rule set, when no one else really knew what was going on. Even the folks down there themselves were like, hey, we're trying to figure out how this is going to work. So the very beginning, being there from the beginning, is super memorable, because, it was a whole parade of people that none of us, we knew what we were getting into, But until we finally walked up there to compete, it was like, hey, you know, we're all pretty much winging it. That's definitely super memorable to me. And then again, being the first middleweight champion, all of the first champions got a picture that I'm pretty sure is hanging up down at the Apex in the office where they do the matchmaking. So, you know, that's one for the record books, on top of the fact that match where I won the title originally was a very viral knockout where I, you know, knocked the guy out, bounced his head off the table. And, you know, I was expecting to go more rounds after that. And as soon as they called it, man, I completely lost all control. I was screaming and yelling obscenities, and I had lost the ability to make sense of my words. So I was just screaming nonsense at that point because I was so amped up and couldn't believe what had just happened.
Oh, I can only imagine that. Like being the champion, just in any combat sport in general, just being the champion.
Yeah, definitely an overwhelming feeling that, you know, like I told my brother-in-law, because my brother-in-law and my aunt, where I was lucky enough to have, they were able to come out and be down there to support me for the very first fight. So he even looked at me afterwards and he's like, did you even know what you were saying after? I said, no, I was just screaming to scream because I didn't, you know, it was, I like to call it the Ricky Bobby moment where he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I didn't know what to do with my whole body. So I was just going crazy and screaming.
Well, you would. You became champion. You did something that a lot of people haven't done or even thought about. Like, it's really wild. So how does it affect your family? How does it affect the family life?
There's the good and the bad, definitely. You know, it's hard, especially having younger kids when I have to go away, because then the younger ones don't necessarily fully understand. My older two get it a little bit more, but I think the coolest part is, and they're like, yeah, you know, they get to watch me on TV, whether I'm doing something dangerous or not. So it's one of those things where, you know, they talk to people when, you know, if my daughter's at soccer, well, she's talking to them or her friends or other parents, and, you know, it's normal for her. But when other people are like, your dad does what? He's on, you know, they're looking things up. They're asking me questions later on. And normally a lot of them are like, hey, you know, you don't seem like the type to really, you know, because it's not like I walk around town with the belt around my waist or anything like that. So even my neighbor happened to come over the one day not too long ago, and she was like, congratulations. And I thought she was talking about my newest baby, because he's 10 months old last week. So I was like, oh yeah, you hadn't seen that? And she goes, no, you never mentioned that you were doing this. And we're down at the store. We're all watching the clips, and we're like, that's our neighbor. Oh my God. So that was definitely a cool moment where, you know, she was like, you were so humble. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't call it humble. I'm just not going to walk up to every single one of my neighbors' houses and be like, hey, guess what I did?
Oh no, I can't imagine you just mowing the yard with the title. You're just like,
yeah,
hey guys, how are you doing?
I might start, you know, maybe it'll work out a little bit better for me.
Like, if you don't know, now you know.
Yeah.
And that's half the battle. So what are some of the challenges that are facing this sport that you personally see?
The huge amount of hate that we got in the very beginning. It's definitely it's starting to get outweighed with the love that we get from the fans and the people coming around to it, because it all basically was, at the very beginning, people just shitting on us hard every day. You know, trying to stay out of the comment sections is almost impossible, because it's like, oh, hey, I go to click on the video and then the comments are right there, and it's, you know, everyone like, y'all are stupid, y'all are this, that, or the other, and just kind of had to learn to brush that off and deal with it as time went on. But more and more, especially, you know, the podcast world and people, you know, really just crapping on us every chance they could get. And now that it's taken off more and more, it's not as bad, but I know, but like, no matter what, and I know Dana always says this, but it's a lot like the beginning of the UFC, where people were like, this is human cockfighting, this is insanity, this shouldn't be legal. Well, guess what? We're not going anywhere. We've surpassed everyone because it all started with this isn't going to get commissioned anywhere. And then we get commissioned, and this isn't going to make it past the first event. And then millions of views on the first event onto the second one. And then after that, millions of views from that event to the next event. And now we're 8 events in, waiting on the 9th event. Three TV seasons, where the first season that I was on TBS, and then season 2 and 3 have all been on Rumble. So that's one of those things where the amount of hate and everyone who said that we weren't going to make it and it wasn't going to be anything, we've blown all of them out of the water and shut them up. Dana's even said, and I know it's on a Fox. I haven't got to watch the Fox interview yet, but I saw a clip today of it at least, where he was saying that we're surpassing, major sports, NFL, NBA, stuff like that with views, and the couple $1 million that they invested and made back very quickly has turned into $400 to $700 million company. I think the last time I read an article, again, don't hold me to that, but it's very high up there for the short amount of time we've been around to be a very successful thing. I can say Dana said himself, this is the most successful thing he's been a part of in such a short amount of time.
So what would you tell some people that want to break into slap? They want to break into power slap. Like, what advice do you have for some of the newcomers?
Actually take it seriously. I know a lot of people are thinking this is a get off the couch and come and compete kind of thing. And that was some of the storylines at the very beginning, but now it's not so much. You actually need to, again, the rule set. I can't really pound that into people's heads enough. You have to understand the rule set, and you have to have clean fights to be successful in this. You can come in and, have as much power as you want, but if you can't get the rule set down, then you're not going to be successful. You're going to end up with questionable wins and losses. Your personality. If you're a wild person, then it's definitely going to work to your advantage. But I think authenticity is key in the aspect of, in the long run, that's really going to help you out in the aspect of, when you're doing interviews, when I'm doing, a podcast with, like with yourself right now, I get the chance to talk about myself and, where I've come from and who I really am, more than the 15-second clip you're going to watch of me getting hit or me hitting somebody. So, authenticity is key in my book, and being a professional too, because again, as wild as all of this may seem, it's the same. Again, Dana always says, as much, like when we're doing face-offs, he's like, I know you guys think that, hey, the viral clip of us getting in a fight before the fight's going to be great, but it's not. He's like, it's fucking terrible, and they hate it because that can, if something happens before the actual fight, that screws everything up. Now people, as competitors, you're losing money. It's not good, because then the commission's like, well, what the hell? Now we have to deal with these jackwagons screwing things up. So it really throws a wrench into everything.
Well, because I know a lot of people, when they see like the weigh-in fights and all that, they get a kick out of it, but that's really not. That's actually very unprofessional.
Yeah, it doesn't do any good for anybody. It's one thing for some screaming and hooping and hollering, which is, all fun and part of the game. But once you start messing with the money is what it comes down to. You're there to do a job, and for you to be able to get that check, especially because just like the UFC, we have our show money and our win money. If you want that win money, you've got to make it to fight day, because if not, then you're screwed. There's been scenarios in season 1 where I remember, shout out to Emmanuel Muniz. He had to pick up the guy he was fighting, and he was carrying him away saying, not my check, put him out of the craziness that was going on so he could have his fight.
So what are some of the things that you would like people to know about John the Machine Davis? What is some of the things that you would like to let people know about your personal life, if you can?
I always like to bring this one up. I grew up on an ostrich farm as a kid, so my life's been different from the get-go. while everybody else was milking cows on the dairy farm and taking care of their horses and goats, I had these wild velociraptor birds in my backyard. So the adrenaline junkies started at an early age because, to getting the eggs out, we'd have to run in the cage to get the eggs. I'd have to run down the fence line while my sister sprinted in to get one egg at a time,
You mean like actual ostrich, like,
oh yeah,
ostriches?
Yep, big old velociraptor looking bird that hated everything about all of us. So,
and then their eggs are just
like
a
we could feed 3 families. My dad would have to use a drill bit on each side of the egg, so that way you could get the whole thing out so we could make dinner out of it. But that's one of those things where I like to tell people my journey started early with weird, crazy stuff. So the fact that I ended up in power slaps, nothing too out of the ordinary for me, I would say. And for people who know me from home, being odd and not really fitting in most normal spaces is nothing new to me.
So how does it taste? How do the ostrich eggs taste, if you don't mind me asking?
Delicious, man. I honestly miss it, especially as time goes on. The eggs were great. The meat was good for you. I grew up with trash bags full of ostrich jerky in my fridge. So I was just going to town whenever I needed to and living the life, eating bags of meat every day.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I remember every now and then you'll hear about like ostrich meat is the future. I
think that was the plan, but unfortunately it didn't pan out that way for us.
So what is your future goals in power slap?
Maintain my middleweight title. In the off chance that someday they give me the opportunity to be a double champ, I think that would be great. I'd be willing to, more than likely, I'd probably want to move down instead of going up. Take that belt if I could and gladly relinquish it, just so that way I can say I was the first double champ. There's already been guys to be 2 division champions. So I just really want to break as many records as I can in this. I've already been the very first middleweight champ. So that's the very first brick in the building of my legacy that I want to try and leave in this. And, to go undefeated in middleweight the rest of the way out, because I only have 1 loss at heavyweight. That would really be the goal, is to go undefeated the rest of the way out until I'm done. And then, I'm a company man. I would love to stick around, get into some commentating, or if they want someone to help train the newer people coming in, I would absolutely love nothing more than to do that. So that way I could have a regular job in this instead of having to work a 9 to 5 and do power slap, kind of on the side right now.
So you would drop down to what? It would be featherweight, right?
170 at welterweight.
Welterweight, that's what it would be. So what is your next fight, or do you have one ready to go, or do you just training for the next one?
I don't have anything yet, but I know, big news is coming soon, hopefully. Fingers crossed, big news coming soon.
All right, everybody. This is John the Machine Davis. And did you have anything else you wanted to say before we get off?
Go check out my social medias if you would. John the Machine Davis on Instagram, John the Machine Davis on TikTok, John Davis on Facebook. Go give a follow. If you like the clips, if you hate the clips, comment, share stuff. I'll gladly share your posts, even if you want to reach out and talk to me about power slap. I'm not opposed to that. Whenever I get a free moment to answer questions that people have, I love nothing more than to be able to do that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Davis.
Thank you.
So we're going to leave you off with, I want y'all to watch Power Slap. It's going to be on Rumble. They have videos on Tubi. I don't know if a lot of people don't know that, but you can also see some Power Slap on Tubi. I'm going to have the links and descriptions and everything for John when I release this episode, and I will see you later. Thank you.
Thank you very much.